Hi everyone. This is what happened to me when I got government housing part 116. In this video, I wanted to talk to you all about what it is like to use social media to achieve some sort of justice for yourself. In my case, I turned to social media after being refused compensation in the courts, after being refused assistance by the police, lawyers, MPs, and other people. In other words, I turned to social media as a last resort. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Excuse me. I never wanted to go online and tell people all the details of what happened to me. I never wanted to admit that I failed in my efforts to defend myself against a respondent. And I never wanted to admit to total strangers that people who work in the justice system in Melbourne, Australia, were unwilling to help me. But when you tell your story online, that is what happens. You're telling total strangers the most intimate and painful things, and it's out there for everyone to see forever. This can be bad, especially when you're dealing with things that reveal your circumstances. In my case, I was forced to reveal that I live in poverty and that the local police refused to assist me, and I was forced to demonstrate how badly I was treated by the police by publishing a video of them, showing them arguing against me when I tried to report a crime. And that wasn't how I wanted to portray myself online. I would much rather have been on YouTube talking about the holiday that I paid for with my compensation money, or talking about how the justice system worked for me, or how I overcame what happened to me. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that because that is not what happened in my story. My story is about the reality of being poor and disadvantaged, and how those circumstances can make you vulnerable to people who use violence. Being poor can also make you vulnerable to abuse by people who work in the justice system. And I think that is shown in my series. I would urge everyone to watch the whole series of what happened to me when I got government housing so they can understand what I went through. Being poor and disadvantaged makes it easier for violent criminals to attack you, and it makes it harder for you to fight back or to protect yourself from further attacks. An example of that is that I didn't have a home security system because I was too poor to buy one. Clearly, if I had security cameras at my home, I would have been able to prove some of the claims that I was making about the respondent, and the cameras may have acted as a deterrent to him. It's also true that the police would not have been able to ignore my claims about the respondent if I was able to get those incidents on video. Being poor and disadvantaged also makes it easier for people working in the justice system to gaslight you or to ignore your pleas for help. It also makes it near impossible to defend yourself when people in the justice system do the wrong thing. There is literally no one who will listen when you make a claim of wrongdoing against a judge or lawyer. The Judicial Commission exists, but it is very insular, and I don't believe they took my complaints seriously. You can make complaints against lawyers, but without money to pay for a lawyer to fight the lawyer you are complaining about, your complaint will go nowhere. And this is why I turned to social media. Without social media, I would have been stuck in an endless cycle of defending myself against lies. If I hadn't turned to social media to tell my story, I would have been victimized by lies, then working hard to defend myself from those lies over and over again, just as I have demonstrated in this series. Some people who work in the justice system use lies to buy time, and in that time, people become homeless and miss out on compensation, like what happened to me. When you become homeless or miss out on compensation, the likelihood of being able to prove claims of wrongdoing is much harder. And I believe this is one of the reasons why I was refused compensation. People knew that they had done the wrong thing, and making me poor and keeping me poor was a good way of covering that up. When I was going through the justice system, I was stuck in a web of lies, and the only thing that helped to free me was telling my story on social media. When I went through the justice system, I discovered that most people working in it have no interest in justice, and they were not in the least bit interested in the truth. Most of them saw that I was caught in a web and was so selfish and so ruthless that they just didn't care. Most were content to watch me suffer, which is clearly sadistic. Some people who worked in the justice system were willing to hate me because a colleague who had never met me told them something about me. Others hated me because of the way I dressed or other such petty excuses. In short, they didn't seem to need a real reason to hate. They didn't seem to need a reason to punish me either, or to discriminate, or to exclude, or to prejudge. It seemed to me that some people working in the justice system could literally, excuse me, use any excuse to justify duty failure, incompetence, and prejudice. I was utterly powerless against them. And this is evidenced by the fact that I didn't get compensation for what happened to me. So, as I said, this is why I turned to social media. And the interesting thing is that the attitude of some people who target me has changed since I did. Some of them have stopped yelling at me in supermarkets, and that's a welcome change. Some of them aren't so smug anymore, and that's nice. Some of them have stopped standing behind me and glaring at me while I talk to my daughter at train stations, and that's good. So, in some ways, I think that telling my story on social media has helped me, and maybe not everyone in the justice system is bad. It should be noted that some people who work in the justice system walk up to me and yell "fuck off." So they are clearly very angry at me for coming forward with my story. They're angry at me for telling the world, like they think I am supposed to keep what happened to me a dirty secret between us. People need to understand that if these people are angry at me, this may indicate that some of the people working in the justice system have faced consequences for what happened to me. So that's why I said that maybe not all of them are that bad. We need to acknowledge that if they were all that bad, they would still be just as smug as they were before. And they're not. So maybe something has been done about some of the claims that I have made in this series. I am the first to admit that if all people working in the justice system were bad, then no one would be angry at me because they wouldn't have to worry about the consequences of me telling my story. There has been a change in the behaviour of some of these people, and that's not because I compiled years of evidence, and it's not because I went to the police, and it's not because I went into court and stood on the stand all day and told my story. It is because of social media. I want everyone to know that the only thing that has caused a change in my circumstances was telling you all what happened to me on social media. If you watch the whole series, you will see that I tried and tried to tell my story to a whole lot of people. People who have chosen to work in the field of justice, and those people ignored me. They lied about me, they argued against me, they fought me, they denied me. But when I turned to social media, things started to change. I didn't want to finish this series because I know that a lot of you have experienced similar things to me. I know people want to comment on my videos and tell me their story, and I will try to write back. I appreciate everyone who has watched this series, and I urge you to watch the full series so you can understand everything that happened to me. I'm moving on to another series called Don't Come to Melbourne, and I hope you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell so you will get to watch it as soon as I start publishing. The new series will be similar to what happened to me when I got government housing, but it'll also be quite different. And I will look forward to telling you all more of my story.